Still, pressure grew. Rival claimants arose, distant cousins of the royal line who doubted her story. They questioned her memory, whispered that her amulet was forged, and accused her of being a tool of foreign powers. To them, she was not a princess returned, but a girl grasping for power. The debates reached the ears of the colonial officers. Captain Jameson, with his sharp blue eyes and careful smile, saw in this conflict an opportunity. If he could divide the people, weaken their unity, he could extend his control with ease. He visited Aisha with polite words, offering her treaties and promises. But beneath his courtesy was a quiet wave of threat. If she refused, others would rise in her place, and the land would fracture. Aisha listened, her hands resting on the amulet at her neck. She remembered her father's words in her dream. Your strength is not in the power you wield, but in the truth you carry. With calm dignity, she told Jameson that Zaza was not a land to be traded. The officer smiled thinly and left, but his footsteps echoed with warning. Soon after, unrest spread. Villages divided between those who believed Aisha and those who doubted. Old feuds resurfaced, and roads once safe grew dangerous. Bandits raided caravans, claiming to fight in her name, though she had never called them to war. Farmers spoke of curses, while traders feared the markets would collapse. Musa counseled her to remain patient. Truth shines brighter when tested, he said. But Dinladi urged a bolder path. Words are not enough, Aisha. Show them who you are. Led them not as a memory, but as a ruler, torn between patience and boldness. Aisha sought solitude and prayer beneath the crescent moon. She thought of the girl she had been, frightened, lost, nameless, and of the woman she was becoming. Could she truly bind her people together? Could she carry both crown and burden? Her answer came not in visions, but in the cries of her people. A plague of hunger struck one region, leaving families weak and desperate. Aisha gathered what grain she could from the palace stores and rode out with Musa and Dinladi to deliver aid. She worked beside the villagers, sharing not only food but also her hands and her time. Slowly, hearts began to soften. Doubt turned to gratitude. But as her star grew brighter, so too did the shadows around her. Captain Jameson spread word that Aisha plotted rebellion. He warned the Queen Mother that the girl was dangerous, a spark that could ignite war. Rivals to the throne conspired in dark corners, each claiming that only they could lead the land to peace. And somewhere beyond the borders, whispers said that Jadato, the traitor, had not vanished, but was gathering strength in exile. Aisha, however, stood firm. She was no longer the lost orphan of Kano, no longer a frightened child running through smoke and fire. She was a woman forged by struggle, shaped by loss, and lifted by hope. She vowed that her people would not be ruled by fear, not by warlords, not by colonizers, not even by the ghosts of the past. The struggle for Zaza was far from over, but the fire that had begun as a spark in a frightened girl now burned steadily in the heart of a leader. Aisha Zaza walked forward, knowing the storms ahead would test her like never before. Yet in her steps, her people saw a path, and so her story continued, not as a tale of return, but as the forging of destiny. The orphan had become a princess. The princess was becoming a leader, and the leader was walking toward a future no one could yet see. The fire of destiny burned within Aisha, but the winds of change pressed hard against it. The land stood at a crossroads. Some saw her as the hope of Zaza, others as a danger to stability, and still others as a tool to be used. The Queen Mother, though proud of her granddaughter, grew weary of the mounting tension. Advisers whispered constantly in her ear, "Let Aisha take the throne. Let her silence the doubters with power." But the Queen Mother hesitated. She knew the throne was not merely a seat of honor. It was a burden of iron that demanded both wisdom and sacrifice. Meanwhile, Captain Jameson moved in the shadows, sowing division. He promised weapons to Aisha's rivals, gold to traders, and protection to chiefs who bent to his will. His words were honey, but within them was the bitterness of chains. More and more, Aisha's path narrowed. To stand idle was to see her people broken apart. To act too boldly was to risk a war she could not win. As days passed, news reached her ears. Jadato, the traitor of old, had returned. He had gathered warriors beyond the borders, men hardened by exile, hungry for power. His voice carried venom as he declared himself the true protector of the land. To him, Aisha was not a princess but an impostor, a child of chance who dared to claim a throne she did not earn. His words stirred fear, and once again the people of Zaza trembled. Aisha did not falter. She rode out to meet her people, not with soldiers, but with words. In markets and fields, in mosques and courtyards, she spoke of unity. She reminded them of who they were before betrayal, before foreign influence, before the fire and smoke that had broken their trust. Her voice rose like the talking drum, steady, rhythmic, unyielding, and many began to believe again. But Jadeo was not a man of words. He marched with swords and fire, striking villages loyal to Aisha. Smoke once again darkened the horizon. Refugees filled the roads, carrying their grief and their fear. Dunladi pressed Aisha to raise an army. "He will not stop unless you stop him," he said. Musa, older and gentler, urged patience. "Do not lose yourself in the blood of men," he counseled. Caught between the wisdom of restraint and the demand for action, Aisha sought guidance in prayer. And in the stillness of the night, she remembered her father's gift, the crescent-shaped amulet. Its words echoed in her heart, de Gita de Casa. With home, with land, it was not only a blessing, it was a command. Home was nothing without its people. The land was nothing without its unity. At dawn, she made her decision. She would face Jadeo, but not as a child fleeing flames. She would face him as Aisha of Zaza, bearer of truth. The confrontation came in a wide plain outside the city. Jadeo's men, armed and fierce, stood against villagers, traders, and farmers who had gathered behind Aisha. She did not lift a sword. Instead, she walked forward, her amulet glinting in the morning sun. With steady voice, she named his betrayals. The night he set fire to the palace, the lives it shattered, the greed that had driven him. Each word struck harder than iron. Her people raised their voices with hers, chanting her name. For the first time, Jadeo's men hesitated. Some lowered their weapons. Others turned away. And in that moment, the tide broke. Jadeo, once so powerful, stood alone, his ambition crumbling like clay in rain. He fled once more, swallowed by the dust, his name cursed by those it sought to rule. Silence followed, heavy and wide. Then, slowly, voices rose in song. Not of war, but of relief. The people of Zaza had chosen not the sword of traitor, nor the chains of foreigners, but the voice of their own blood, the voice of Aisha. From that day, she was no longer merely the lost princess. She became the heart of her people. She did not sit upon a golden throne. Instead, she walked among farmers in their fields, joined mothers in their kitchens, listened to elders by the fire. Her rule was not of crowns and palaces, but of closeness and truth. The colonial officers, though frustrated, could not deny her strength. They realized they could not bend her without breaking the people. And so they stepped carefully, wary of the flame she had kindled. Aisha Zaza had risen from smoke and ashes, from loss and exile, from doubt and betrayal. Her journey was not over, but her destiny was clear. She was a bridge between past and future, the flame that would not die, the light by which her people could find their way. And so, her story lives, not only in the halls of palaces, not only in the whispers of Griot, but in the hearts of her people, who remember that once a little girl was lost, and when she was found, she became the hope of Zaza.